Hi everyone, my name is Pianpian. I'm the founder and CEO of Amotions. Amotions is a platform to help you increase success by developing important skills. Today, we're happy to have Elena Mikhailov here. She's a global capital leader, a global human capital leader, and executive coach. Thank you for being here, Elena.
Thank you for having me, Pianpian. I appreciate it. I hope everybody had a wonderful week and is getting ready for the weekend.
Thank you. So we have heard from the community that people wondering about goals and what kind of goals to set and how to achieve their goals. That could include career goals, personal goals, etc. And right now we are in June, half year mark, and I think it's still an important time to visit setting goals and how to get there. So would you please share some thoughts on this, Elena?
Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about smart goal setting process. And of course, we'll talk about your plan to success and we'll discuss 5 winning mindset strategies, how to get, perhaps sometimes through the challenging times, how to keep you on track and how to win your day every day. All right. So smart goals. Smart goals were started out in the 80s. 1981 is, when smart goals first came about. Some of you probably have set the smart goals at your companies. Perhaps you have tried them personally. Maybe they have been successful. Sometimes, most challenges come from maybe a little bit of a misalignment, right? Feeling that the goals may be a little bit more mechanical. And so you go through the process without really paying too much attention as to how you are personally aligned to your goals. So the purpose of today's conversation is to make sure that you are aligned to your goals. You understand your whys, you know how to execute, you know what will be the challenges, and you reach your success ultimately. So let's talk about it. Now, first things first, the S, of course, stands for specific. Now, I can't emphasize enough how important this point is. Clarity is key. Now, why is this your goal? Why is it important to you? What outcome are you looking to achieve? What is the end result that you want to accomplish? Now, that is first question that you should ask, because without your why, without clarity on what it is you actually want, you're probably going to get derailed very early on in the process. For example, your goal is maybe to get your certification in Agile, and that's that. I mean, like, it's a process, right? So that's what you want to do. That's your goal. But ask yourself, why is certification Agile important to you? What competitive edge would that give you? What is it going to require you to do? What do you want to accomplish with that certification? So these are actually the underlying goals. So your goal here is not just getting an Agile certification, but the goal is to move perhaps your career forward, or to be more effective at managing your team. Or maybe you want to get an Agile mindset, and this is where, that would be a helpful tool for you, as a life skill, right? Or actually Agile, I see it more of as a mindset, but maybe that's something that you want to apply to your personal life, right? So understand what is your underlying goal here. Now, also equally important is understanding what are the requirements. Now, going back to I want to get an Agile certification, right? I want to be a master of that, right? So maybe so what are the requirements? What do you need to do? What certification do you need to get? What exams do you need to take? What experience do you need to have? How will you be practicing this? All of this is, hugely important. Now, what are the constraints? What are some of the challenges? I mean, maybe it's a cost associated challenge. Maybe you need to go back to your employer and ask for that. Maybe this is something that you're getting from your own savings. This is, again, it's just an example of what may come as a challenge. Maybe it's time. Maybe, time is of an issue, right? Maybe you have a really full schedule, and then you need to think about, like, what would that timeline look like for you? Now, who else needs to be included? Who can help you with this, right? Is this your team? Is this yourself? Is this somebody else? Understand the dependencies, right? And of course, another thing to consider here, when do you want to do this? Is this a today situation? Is it tomorrow? Is it, as we're talking about the remainder of the year, maybe it's 3 months from now. Maybe this is really not a this quarter's initiative. Maybe you're thinking about something, down the road. And why it's important, right, is because you're then able to prioritize this properly for yourself. And in your mind, you're preparing yourself and are in a commitment, to this project. You want to be committed. Now, of course, skipping to measurable. Now, how are you going to measure your success? Like, what would progress look like? So achievement of what will clarify you being successful at getting this done? Is it the, certification? Maybe it's, something more personal. Maybe, you want to drop X number of pounds by the end of the year. So you're not pushing this off until the end, but you're creating extra steps as to what it is that you need to be accomplishing along the way. How will you measure your success and you tracking towards that success? Okay. Now, achievable. Now, is this doable, right? Is this something that you are actually committed to? Now, this is a question that I always ask my teams, right? And so how committed are you to this? Because if you're not committed, and if this is not achievable, if you're looking at this and it's already looking pretty overwhelming, then you really need to rescale your effort. And that's okay. I mean, that's absolutely normal to do because we want things yesterday. I mean, we want the results done way back when, right? You want to be already reaping the benefits of your results. But look at this now, look at this goal. How are you feeling? And notice, is this making you excited? Are you feeling the dread? Where are you in that process? What is your reaction? How are you feeling about that, right? So do you reasonably believe you can achieve this goal? Now, ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel or think, that you will actually do what it takes to achieve this goal? Are you committed? Like, this is, where you're going to check that commitment. Are you going to do what it takes? Are you going to get up every morning and go for a run or, do a swim or something else? Think about it. How committed are you to this project? Now, what skills are required, right? I mean, do you have the right skills and capabilities to achieve this? I mean, think about this. I mean, this is another aspect to consider when figuring out whether this goal is achievable. For example, I'm not a runner at all. I tried to run, it is just not my jam, right? So for me to say I'm going to run a 10-mile, by whatever next week is probably not a reasonable goal, right? I don't have the skills to have, the right breathing. And, I don't have the capabilities of a runner to run a 10-mile by next week, right? So it won't happen. So for me to, put that goal in is probably not reasonable. But what is reasonable is for me to maybe take a short run, or at least, something that I can actually accomplish that will get me motivated and excited. Now, another thing is very, very important. Now, the amount of effort that you're going to put into this goal, is it going to be in alignment with the end result? And this is, hugely important because this is where the cognitive dissonance happens, right? Because sometimes you think you want really this and you're all pumped up about it, but the end result here is not enough to get you motivated. And it will maybe enough to get you started, but once you start experiencing the hardships or difficulties or challenges, right, you're probably not going to be aligned with the end result. So make sure the effort equals to the end result. Now, relevant and realistic. Now, how meaningful is this goal to you? Is this even your goal? I mean, I can't tell you how many times somebody puts out a goal and, after having conversations on exploring why this goal is important to you, it comes up that this is not even your goal. So understand why this is your goal, why it's important to you, and how aligned you're to this goal is going to be what's actually going to be moving the needle forward for you. Now, what is your motivation, right? What is the end result and why this end result is super important to you? Ask yourself as a coach, this is an exploratory conversation with yourself sometimes, right? Why is this hugely important to me? What am I looking to achieve? Okay, of course, time bound, right? You want to make sure that you give yourself a time frame by when you want to accomplish this. So if it's abstract, I want to someday, do this, it's a vision. right? And even a big vision, has an end result. Usually say, I have, a 3-year vision or a 5-year vision, but there's something there. But it's a little bit more abstract, right? If the goal is not determined, it's not really a goal. So you want to always say, by when do you want to accomplish things, right? Set yourself with a timeline, by when you're going to accomplish this portion, by when this portion, right? So you have something to help yourself measure against, right? Any questions so far, Pian?
Yes, I think based on what I hear from the community, there are several aspects of this that we can clarify. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on these so far. So you mentioned the why, and why is very important. It's like that's what keeps us motivated to achieve that. Then how would you suggest, like, kind of thinking about the why? Like, where does someone start? Is this from value or something else?
Yes, absolutely. And you have to understand what your values are, right? Because ultimately, if you're thinking about your why, um, or if you think about your goal and then your why, sometimes these things are not, very aligned, because you think you want something, but then it's conflicting with your other values. So when you're setting up a goal, make sure it's aligned to the things that you value. Like, for example, you you want to get your MBA on a fast track, right? But you value your time off, right? Your wellness is your top priority. This is your number one goal. But getting an MBA on a short track, for example, right, or getting anything on a short track, example, like, you will have to invest the time and effort in getting this done. Now, this is going to be immediately in conflict, right? So make sure, your values are not in conflict, but because you may be valuing higher education, or you may be valuing knowledge, as your other value, right, in conjunction with your, let's say, wellness value, right? But you have to understand what's important, and are they in conflict with each other, how to make these values work well together, right? Maybe then you have to think about, like, maybe this extensive goal to get this MBA done is not, it doesn't have to be done in the next, 1 year. Maybe it's a 2-year process. So you have to reevaluate where that belongs, where both values are not in conflict, right? Where they're, working well together to support your goal, right? So, because if you don't value, if you value your time here and your wellness, and all of a sudden you get stressed out by the short timeline of achieving this MBA goal, you're not going to get there, because ultimately somewhere along the lines, you're going to get overwhelmed and quit, right? So this is where this needs to interact very well.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like someone has to take some time to sit down and really kind of get in sync with their own values and etc. before they can write down all these goals.
Absolutely. So your values, right, and your why is this meaningful to you? This is where the values come through, right? Why is this important, right? I think the importance and the why shows through the SMART goals, throughout pretty much every section, is that how aligned do you feel? And always check this against your values. Like, you know what I mean? Even and like we talked about the time bound, when relevant and realistic and inachievable, right? Even immeasurable values will come through, right? So you are specific, absolutely. So always understand yourself at your core and what it means, for you to have these goals, and where you might potentially have a conflict, so you can resolve that. It's as soon as it becomes visible, you can absolutely resolve that, because if you're not paying attention to your why, ultimately you will end up giving up.
Yeah, sounds great. I think that's very helpful and important part. I think we can progress to the next parts, and then I'll ask more follow-up questions.
Sure. And of course, the same information is going to be, available to you, if you'd like, on in a PDF, so you can go through the worksheet yourself. So I'm sure Pianpian will offer that as part of this conversation. So an easy tool for you to follow. Now, planning for success. First and foremost, again, clarity, right? Getting really clear on what it is that you want. And here I want to make sure that you document everything, right? Don't put an abstract goal. For example, I want to be happy, right? I want to be happy is not a goal. I want to be happy is a state, right? So happiness is a state of being. So you need to understand, what is it specifically that is going to make you happy? Clarity and, specific understanding as to how things will tie together will help you to get to that end result. So you absolutely need to be very, very clear on what it is that you want, why it is that you want it, what is going to stand in the way, what is going to help you, when do you want this? So getting that clarity, number one, make sure that exists there. What steps do you need to take, right? And then again, making sure this aligns. I mean, you wrote down 100 steps in there, and there was a relatability, question there, of course. Okay, so does the outcome, relate or is relevant to the effort that you would have to put in, right? Maybe, let's say I want to maybe lose 30 pounds, right? But that means that I have to get up at 6 a.m. and do 2-hour workouts every day. I'm probably not committed, right? And as soon as you're not committed, this is where you start saying, okay, so what else can I do? Maybe I need to refocus the goal, right? Maybe something else needs to get readjusted. So clarity is key. Now, purpose, again, can't emphasize enough. Understand your why. Why are you doing this? For example, for me to lose these 30 pounds that came with COVID, would probably mean that I will have a better health, right? So is this my value? Is this important to me? So your purpose here, right, needs to be very much aligned with your values, right? Maybe it isn't. Maybe you value physical attractiveness, right? Maybe you feel that that's hugely important. So understand why you're doing this. Now, action, right? Unless you take action, nothing's going to happen, right? So this is kind of a bit of a newsflash, I know, but people who won lottery still went and bought the lottery tickets. That's as simple as that, right? You can't possibly expect that it's just going to fall on your head all of a sudden. And I mean, in some cases, maybe, sure. I mean, maybe, you got a huge inheritance, but something else had to happen in order for that to happen, right? So if you're thinking of a goal, think about an action that you have to take and that you're committed to, right? And that's huge, right? It's because, of course, your brain is going to fight this, to the end, because action is going to be something new. It's like developing a new habit. It takes time. So, but it has to be consistent, right? And you have to be accountable, right? So creating accountability process is going to be very important, whether you're joining the accountability group, whether you're finding accountability strategies yourself. I mean, that is going to be very important. Consistency in execution and taking action is what's going to drive your success. Most people fail not because they didn't have the right knowledge. They had all the right knowledge. It's actually why most personal development things, don't really work, is because people don't implement them consistently. That's what's important, right? It's not because the strategy wasn't there. Absolutely was. I mean, the knowledge is there, but we're not here for the knowledge. I mean, I'm sure you already know enough to execute. But the thing is, in our mindset is that for as long as we keep on acquiring new knowledge, it feels like we're doing something, whereas actually taking action means doing something on the knowledge that you already have, putting it into action. So that's what that actually means. So consistency in that, will also bring resilience as a kind of a positive side effect, right? For as long as you're consistently applying, action, right, and everything that you've learned, right, you're going to develop resilience, right? So consistent application, you will learn how to not give up and just, in spite of your how to not give up because of the setbacks. I don't want to say this wrong, right? So you want to continue to do what you set out to do. You want to fail, evaluate, learn, move forward, right? And failure is actually a good thing here because it's a learning opportunity. As soon as you stop failing, you stop learning. So look at failure as a positive thing. So for as long as you're learning and moving forward, that's where that is. Now, self-reflection is where you're going to learn how to apply sometimes failures, sometimes successes. You have to look at both, right? And see how that's moving you forward. How do you need to realign your strategy, right? And of course, self-acknowledgement, right? So don't take yourself for granted. Don't take your progress for granted. If you want to establish any kind of habit, right? Any habit loop has a self-acknowledgement involved, and there's a reward. So self-acknowledgement is a reward. Take a look at yourself, right? Make sure you look at what you have accomplished, what you have learned, how you've been able to succeed. Maybe it wasn't this big bang, but you still move forward. You're further than you were when you started. And that is a positive thing. Look at that, learn how to celebrate this, learn how to acknowledge yourself, because that's how you're going to continue moving forward. This is how you're going to continue learning. This is how you're going to develop those new habit loops.
Yes, I think all these are great points. And for accountability, you can also join Amotions. We have a community of people who might be in your similar journey of trying to achieve different kind of goals. And sometimes the goals might be actually similar in some way, starting a new career, finding meaningful work, or starting a business. So that could be part of the social accountability as well. And self-acknowledgement, I agree, it's very important that we sometimes forget to kind of give the cheers for ourselves that we have done something even just small, and then we can also have the community to cheer each other on even accomplishing small steps as well. Thank you, Elena. These are great points.
Okay. All right. So now 5 winning mindset strategies. Now, practice self-awareness through mindfulness, right? So these two are very interlinked, right? So mindfulness is allowing you to slow down and look at things objectively without reacting. This is where we separate our ego from ourselves, right? And our ego is not us. Our ego came about as a result of our experiences, as our result of our beliefs, our environment, right? But you yourself, this is where you shine, right? As soon as you start practicing mindfulness, right, it brings you to that self-awareness. It brings you to an opportunity to look at yourself in a different way. Again, this is, when you're discovering your why, right? Don't jump to immediate conclusions. Maybe you take a moment to center yourself, to figure out exactly, where you are, so that you're able to distinguish whether this is something you want, whether that's something that you have acquired, right? Is this your thought? Is this your belief? Is this what you want? Is this important to you? Why is this important to you? But the only way you can do that, right, is if you practice mindfulness, your self-awareness as to how you're reacting to things, right? You have to notice, your own emotions, right? Your own mindsets and beliefs through mindfulness, right? I mean, for example, do you, maybe you're going on a diet, and this is a personal example, but you're so used to eating so many things, right? Practicing mindfulness, right? Slowing down and say, okay, do I actually really like to eat this, right? Like getting your mind from the big already existing, habit loop of, putting anything in your mouth, you become more aware of, when am I hungry? What do I want to eat? Do I even like the taste of it? I mean, maybe you thought you liked coffee. And like, for example, in my simple example here, I used to drink milk all the time. I actually realized I don't like milk, so I'm drinking oat milk now with my coffee. So it's a bit of a change, and I know this is a bit of a silly example, but on a personal note. But it takes a moment to figure out, what do you like, right? What do you want? You know what I mean? Even as you're building out your business, right? You've read all these big guru advice, right? You've read, I'm sure, 10,000 self-help books, right? And at this point, you're trying to figure out what is your opinion of this, right? How do you feel? What aligns to you, right? I mean, there's a lot of, conversation about, okay, well, you need to do podcasting, you need to be an influencer, you need to do X, Y, and Z, right? But maybe that's not your strategy, right? Maybe this doesn't align to you and you feel uncomfortable. So you need to figure out exactly what works for you. So slowing down and allowing for that process to take place, I think is the number one thing you should definitely practice. Now, opening yourself up to what if possibilities, right? It's what if principle. So what if it does work out? What if this is awesome, right? What if this is going to be amazing instead of, oh goodness, what if I fail, right? Look at this at a positive thing, right? Look at it, what if this is going to be a success? What would I do? What if this was already an awesome thing? How would I behave? And look at that from a positive perspective and see what actions would you take? What thoughts would you have? What feelings would you have? How would you approach it, right? So I would say this, from that perspective, like think of a positive. What if it does work out? So get out of the, oh my goodness, there's a limit to what I can do, but what if there isn't? So I think we as humans, we are absolutely capable of so many things if we were to free our minds from the limitations that it's, set for us over years and years of our existence, right? So what if you allow yourself for a possibility to win? Now, the next one is, of course, taking small steps. I mean, I know you want to achieve everything, like I said yesterday, right? You want all of this already to be in place and you're enjoying the successes of that. But enjoy the process, break it down into smaller steps. Because if you're looking at a big thing, it can be very easily overwhelming. Like, for example, you already want to have a seed round or an A round or maybe something else, right? So you're already thinking that, that's what you want. And that's great. It's great to have that vision, but the steps that you have to take to get there is still going to be smaller wins. So break it out to smaller wins, one step of the way, and recognize yourself for that. Now, expressing gratitude. I think it's important. I mean, in positive psychology, of course, it's, number one thing. You should have a gratitude journal, but focusing on the positives is what's going to continue to engage you and continuing for you to take action. Noticing what's already working out is going to allow you and your mindset, to move forward, right? To think that anything is possible, right? Because you're noticing the positives, right? I mean, I'm not saying not to learn from the negatives that happen, but even on the negatives, you can always look on the other side, right? When you look at a coin is not only one side or the other side, it's a coin, right? Your success is, your wins and failures. Look at it as that coin. So expressing gratitude along the way will help you focus on positives of every aspect, even from a failure perspective. Let's just say something didn't go right. I mean, goodness, you did a presentation and it flopped. It's okay. Because on the positive side, the gratitude is that you have had an opportunity to express yourself. You had an opportunity to share your thoughts. And even if, it wasn't an immediate success, you made a step forward. So that's positive. Now, of course, celebrating your wins. Again, habit loop forming exercise. As you're going through your experiences, you have to celebrate your wins, because the way our mind works, it wants a reward. We want to understand how would we acknowledge ourselves in, as we go through our challenges, as we win, as we move forward, right? We need to make sure that we recognize ourselves if we want to succeed. So celebrating your wins, whether it's for you or with your team, it's extremely important. So let's make sure that you do that.
Yes, I think these are great points. And for the leaders listening, I think express gratitude for yourself and also for your team, and celebrate with the team. It will go a long way, because sometimes we be very much focused on like delivering product or business results and might forget that, okay, take a moment say cheers and thank you for each other.
Absolutely. And that's extremely important because it allows you to see an opportunity. So, why gratitude is important? It allows you to think in opportunities versus setbacks, right? So, you want to see an opportunity. If you want to win, in your personal life and business, anywhere, you have to see everything as an opportunity to grow, develop, achieve, succeed. Even joy, right, is a stems from that, right? You're grateful for things in your life, and that brings joy, right? So I would say it's absolutely essential because you see everything as a possibility at that point.
Yes, that's great.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, that's it in a nutshell. So as far as the winning strategies are concerned, and of course please apply them as you go through your SMART goals.
Sounds great. And I would love to hear from the community listening that what are your goals? What have you set? What have you learned from what we talked about today? What are the actions you have taken? And then what are the results you have seen? Because I have heard of some users who kind of did some of similar things and it brings a lot more kind of trust and support from the team, etc. So I would love to hear from you. And please join Emotions for more sessions or for more some of these like content that we are making. Thank you so much, Elena. I really appreciate your time and thoughts.
Of course.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.